Yesterday, I had the pleasure of going down to London. I have to say, it's not always a pleasure going to London, but it was a pleasure to go and visit, in a professional capacity, the recording studio known as Abbey Road Studios, which of course is famous, probably most famous for the Beatles doing their albums there. But the credits of the artists, producers, and other great and good that have worked there is incredible. Here's a list for you. So on this video, I'm going to talk about my feelings about recording studios, the old-fashioned recording studios, especially the ones that are historic, on what should happen with those studios. Are they of any use now, or have they just turned into some sort of tourist trap? And if that's the case, what sort of tourist trap is Abbey Road Recording Studios, which when I was there seemed to be a healthy working studio with people still making records in there. So it was a very interesting experience. Now, I was down there doing something which I am not going to announce yet, but obviously if I was down there, it was something pretty good. And so I'm very excited about that. And that will maybe whet your appetite for what I was doing as well. So as a little bit of what's it called? Smoke and mirrors here. What's Andy been up to? But on this video, I'm going to talk about Abbey Road Recording Studios. Now, when you go down to Abbey Road, perhaps the most famous landmark is not the studio itself, but the zebra crossing outside, which was made famous by the cover of the album by the Beatles called Abbey Road. And when you arrive there, there's a huge crowd of people all standing on the zebra crossing, but they can't just all walk across it in a queue because it would, basically stop the traffic. So there's a very strange negotiation going on, which must be going on continually, of people waiting there in a very British way to let a certain amount of cars come through, and then the odd person then marching across like a soldier, right? And then it stops. And so I then waltzed down in full-on Andy Edwards style to create as much chaos as I could at the zebra crossing. So here's the footage from that. I went down with my friend Rob Growcut, who had got a bad leg, but still came down because he wanted the experience of coming down and visiting Abbey Road. This has got a very special place in people's lives, in the cultural history of music. And I went down with my daughter who was filming. So shall we cut to just outside of Abbey Road, about to go over the zebra crossing? Just make it hear what I'm saying. Closer, closer. Brilliant. Stop, that's too close. Back. Right, hello viewers. As you can see, I am at Abbey Road Recording Studios. It's behind me. I'm with my friend Rob. We're doing big stuff here. I can't say what it is. It's very hush-hush. Very hush-hush. Very hush-hush. So I can't really say what it is. But of course, I felt I should go up the road to where the zebra crossing is and do the famous Abbey Road zebra crossing. Now, you wait there, Rob.
Yeah, I'm going to wait.
You wait there.
I'll wait here.
We don't want to let them see him inside because apparently they don't like this. We're going to be recreating that scene there, that one there. But I've been told not to show it to anybody inside because they don't like it. So you didn't see that, did you? So, right, so I'll show you the book. So you come out of... now what I'm going to do is, Rob, when we get to the zebra crossing, I know you've got a bad leg. They're not going to be able to hear me over there. Come back here. You've got to be up close. Grace, I've got to be up close. I can't shout it any louder. I'm going up the whole road here. They're all looking at me. She's filming me there. Right. Rob's got a bit of a bad leg, haven't you, Rob?
I've got a bad back and leg.
He's got a bad back and he's on a walking stick, but I need him to go and... Are you going to be standing in the road and just film me walking across?
With all the traffic coming?
Yeah.
Let's
have a look up there.
Do I really have to?
Yeah, I want you to.
What if I'm going to run out of the way of a beetle?
Like a Volkswagen Beetle.
Like a Volkswagen Beetle, or a musician Beetle.
That was a pun, wasn't it?
That was a pun.
Right, out the way. Lock the door. We don't have hoi polloi coming in. Normal people.
Not closing.
Shut the door, guy. You're rubbish.
Oh no.
Don't you talk. Film it. Right, so follow me up here.
Anymore, Dad.
You are. You're going to get embarrassed. Look, show them all the things on here.
No, actually, I'm not doing it.
Just film it down. Don't say you're not going to film it. Film it down. There's all these signatures over here. I am at the famous zebra crossing. You can see it behind me. This is the Beatles zebra crossing. Rob, as you can see, he's got the now. But Rob, if you could stand there, and I will walk across it.
In the middle of the traffic.
Yeah. Well, come on. If let you just come over here. Come on.
God.
I'll do this, and I'm going to film myself crossing.
And I'm going to film
You're going to film me crossing as I'm filming the crossing. Oh, it's so complex, this is. So I'm about to do the Beatles walk. There's a big red bus coming, Rob. Don't get the bus. Don't get run over. He's not well, you see. I think they don't even. It's a zebra crossing. They're supposed to stop when you stand here. It's the only zebra crossing where they don't stop. That's what the Beatles have done. That bloke is out now. I'm ready to go. Come on. Everyone's doing it now.
You start.
Can I do it with you?
Yeah, sure.
Come on then. Did you do what I did then? I bet you didn't, did you?
We just winged it.
We've done it together. I've got a YouTuber, so you'll be on my YouTube as well.
You have YouTube?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, 60,000 subscribers.
Whoa.
So you'll be famous.
I'm dying to be famous.
Yes. Andy Edwards, remember that. You'll find it. He's not scared, you see. Anyway.
Might be one day very soon.
So Rob, that's something ticked off the bucket list.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It's been a long time coming, I think, hasn't it, really?
Well, the thing that no one's ever mentioned is because everyone's just stood there and they're shy, the traffic doesn't stop, does it?
No. Well, I noticed that when we came past it, we were just like, nobody stops. It's like the one zebra crossing in the world that nobody actually stops up.
Let's get in here then. We're going back into the Abbey Road. I'm doing a session here at the moment. It's very hush hush. So yeah, we're back in now. I don't want to go and show you around inside it. You're not allowed. I was just about to do a bit of comedy then, Rob, and you spoilt it about how I was a big shot, and I don't really want to be seen filming inside because it makes me look like the hoi polloi, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah, but you know what? Most of these people probably haven't seen inside, so you could just film anywhere. Like go
That's true.
Like a sports hall somewhere, and just be like,
yeah. So you could see much chaos ensued. It was fun. I have to be honest. To me, it was just a zebra crossing. I got no feelings walking across that zebra crossing. You know me, I'm obsessed with music history. I find very interesting things, connections and all this type of stuff. But I got to be honest, when I went down to Abbey Road, I didn't feel it. I have to be honest. I walked in, signed in, and I think the fact that this is now such a famous place, that the foyer's beautiful, and when you walk in, it's like a little museum. They got all these old microphones, old Neumann microphones and old compressors and all this sort of stuff laid out, and all the history of the place is there. There's hundreds of people outside. They're all photographing it, but they can't get into the studio itself. That's sort of gated off. Next door, there's a shop, and you go into that shop and it's just rammed, and they're selling all sorts of Abbey Road stuff. It's great because it's kept separate. You get buzzed in. I walked in, had a walk round. It looked like at most colleges I worked at, to be honest, once you were going up and down the steps, except there's these incredible photographs of all the incredible artists that have worked there. And I wandered down, and then I stuck my head in to this room, and my hair stood up on end. That room's an incredible room. It's so recognisable as being the place where the Beatles recorded because of the Get Back film. We have all seen it a million times. There's so much footage in there. An incredible place, but also the sort of studio that really does not exist. This is a studio that's set up to record orchestras. It's huge. There's a great big clock on the wall, so everybody can manage the huge amount of people that would be in there. There's a canteen next door where it's like you could go straight out the door and sit in the canteen, so you can see there. It was designed to shuffle large amounts of people across. In 1959, my father-in-law, Peter Wynne, signed to Decca recording record label, and he went to Abbey Road and recorded in there. And back then in 59, it would have been recorded basically to 1 or 2 tracks. He remembers 4 tracks just starting to come in. But on these early recordings, he went in, there would be a full orchestra there, plus a rhythm section. He would be in the corner with a microphone. There would be a conductor, and then they would all get into position, and then they would do it in one take, down, bang. And that's what the studio was designed to do. And it did that all day long. And it was servicing not only burgeoning rock and roll and orchestral stuff and all that, but also a lot of the entertainment that was going on at that point in London, which was the home of the BBC and the home of Elstree Studios and things like this. So with the success of radio shows, people would then go over to those studios and make albums. The Goons did it, Peter Sellers did it. And that's where George Martin started. George Martin was working in the late 50s on albums, comedy albums, where he was having to push the limits of the studio in terms of editing, working in different genres, bringing in lots of different session musicians, because they might have a big band on one track and then an orchestra, or they might have like an Indian classical ensemble. And so that's sort of almost like post-musical goon, anarchic humour that the British have, somehow got its way into, I feel, Abbey Road, and George Martin was the guy to do it. So when the Beatles coming from that culture as well, I know they loved Chuck Berry, but they also loved all that mad stuff, and George Martin was the right guy. They worked together brilliantly. Now I'm sat there looking at this room, and I must admit I was really like going, oh my God, that's the room. And you felt the history, not just the general history of all these incredible artists in there, but also my personal history of my father-in-law. I'm with my daughter, who that's, you know, her granddad. And, you know, on the wall, there was a picture of the Shadows, and you've got like Cliff there with Hank Marvin, and then you've got sat right in the middle, Brian Bennett, who was the drummer on those records with my father-in-law. So I felt that this is history, and we know that, and it's interesting to go down. That's the hallowed room, really. That is the room. They were setting up for recording an orchestra in there. There were a couple of famous people in there. I won't say who, because I don't feel I should, but there was a couple of famous, very contemporary musicians in there at the time. What's the point in these studios? Well, they were designed to do the sort of recording that I have explained. If you had a recording studio in the 1940s or 50s, that was designed to have a big band. It was designed to have an orchestra in. People who were doing like radio shows. I can remember when I was much younger, I did a couple of sessions up at Pebble Mill in Birmingham, and the same thing existed up there. You would walk into this recording studio, which was a huge room, often with in Pebble Mill, the control room was actually up high. It was like the room was 2 stories up. You're in this massive hall, and you were up there. And you'd come in, set your drums up, and they'd bring, once you were set up, they'd bring this thing round you and lock you in, but you could see out the windows everybody. When you played on the radio show, it was basically like done live. So the guy would start and they would introduce you, and then they go, right, you're playing, and we play the track live down. And it was mixed as it went down, and that was the recording. The recording was the radio show. If a recording wasn't made of that show, it went out into the ether. Unless you had your mum and dad at home ready to press record when you were on, and you couldn't tell them that because there were no mobile phones. It was another time, kids. You can't believe the sort of things we have to live with. So that's a recording studio. The technology of a recording studio is a big room and another room next to it, and you can set bands up live, and it sounds great, and they can play together, and you can record together. That was the technology we had in the 40s and the 50s. We had the unit, the band. And the skills required to deliver that became very cherished. They changed a lot when the rock bands came in. They found a much more visceral way of doing it. And if you're a member of the Beatles, you didn't have to be able to sight read and follow a conductor and work within arrangements and do all that type of stuff and sit there, you know, doing perfect take after perfect take. Because of course, if you've got an orchestra with 50 people in, you can't afford to have somebody keep cocking up in the corner. They all have to do it right. They had to get down, and that was the skill. That was all valued. When pop music started in the 1960s, especially in London, there was a weird mix between these sort of visceral rock bands like the Kinks and the Beatles, Jerry and the Pacemakers and the Who, you know, and all that. And then very, very skilled studio musicians. The Shadows with Hank Marvin and Brian Bennett they were great session players, serious players. And the Jimmy Pages and Jeff Becks and John Paul Joneses, all those musicians emerged out of almost like a session scene. And that mix of sort of virtuosity mixed with this visceral rock energy creates rock and roll. It creates rock music, to be more specific. I find that very fascinating. That period of time I find fascinating. I'm actually sat here at the moment. I've had an amp brought into my studio that belonged to a band that was gigging at that time, one of the biggest bands in Britain in the 1960s gigging. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I've got this new thing on this one, haven't I? It's all these things I'm not telling you about, all these surprises trying to draw you in. But I'm going to be looking at that amp's history and going through all the stuff it was involved with. The amp I'm looking at over there, I'm not going to show you it. It's about 60 years old. Could have well sat in Abbey Road at some point. I don't know. We're trying to find out the lineage of it. Anyway, all very interesting. I found that there was a certain point when, in the 70s, people started to get obsessed with separation. They were still recording in that way, but they'd invented multi-track recording, which means everything could go down separate. And so suddenly you went from everybody playing in the whole room to maybe everyone's playing in the whole room except for the singer. They put a guide vocal down, put the vocals on later on. Now put the drums in a separate room, and before you know it, everyone could be playing together, but they're sort of separated. You lose that sort of face-to-face thing going on. But then people realise that you could record everything separately. Mike Oldfield comes out in 1973 with Tubular Bells, and he sat there all on his own, building it all up himself. Do you need to have all this? And at that point, you go from what I would call the sort of pre-rock and roll recording studio to the post-rock and roll studio. And the live room actually becomes less important. And we see a slow move from the live room to the control room. Okay, you see that people are impressed now. If you say we're going to this studio, you see a photograph of the control room, not the live room. No modern studio can compete against the live room at Abbey Road. So suddenly, if you could afford the millions of pounds worth of gear, you can stick this into quite a small space. All it needs is a leather settee, so people can sit and look at all the big knobs that are in front of them, and eventually the computers come in. Now you're looking at a big computer screen. You got a couple of big monitors up there, some near field ones and some low lighting, and it moves from looking like basically what Abbey Road, the big room, looks like, which looks like a sort of big rehearsal space, to almost like the Starship Enterprise. I find that change strange. Okay, now I'm sat in my studio here. I'm in actually a very big room. I could probably get a small orchestra in here. I don't have a separate place. My studio is up here in the corner, and when we do record, we can't really monitor everything. It's much more about the performance space. I have gone back to that, and we've got this here. And I would love in the future, if this channel grows, to have all sorts of musicians rocking up here, setting up, playing, chatting, experimenting, showing off, telling stories. I would love for that to be the channel, so that music carries on, that we go back to the spirit of what George Martin was capturing in those studios. So there's a part of me that loves Abbey Road, but I'm thinking, does the industry exist? Or when they say these big names are there, you go down, they're not going to be in that big room. They're going to be sat in one of the little studios next to a producer, where maybe a separate little vocal booth while they put their vocals down, have stuff that's been programmed on a computer. And modern music making, you just don't need that studio. The only use for Abbey Road, and it's a very esoteric use, is for recording orchestras for film soundtracks. That's obviously what it's used for. And so the initial thing it was designed for, that was then where you had rock bands like Pink Floyd and the Beatles, then grabbing that set of skills that was there to record the orchestra, and that turns into rock and roll, and then rock and roll begats a different way of doing things, and before you know it, a few decades later, it's some kid in a bedroom with an Akai sampler, and then a computer, or then a laptop, or maybe even their phone to make a record. Do we need the studios now to make modern popular music? Do we need the studios to make rock music? We don't hear any real drums on any records. We don't really hear any real guitars. What we hear is a guitar plugged into a computer. The computer pretends to be an amp. Somebody can play an electric drum kit and pretend they're playing acoustic kit, or just program the drums. That complaint about modern music, I've made many a time. And when I arrived down there with the people involved in the session I was doing, and we sat down, and that's what we talked about. We talked about how wonderful it was to have a studio like this and for musicians to walk in with a great producer, some great engineers, and make magic on the spot, a communal act where somebody could be jamming an idea out, they've got a song, and then suddenly an adjustment comes. You know, and decades later on the internet, they're all going to be trying to work out why Paul McCartney played that piano chord after another chord, or how Jeff Beck got the guitar sound, as though they were little professors, but they weren't. They were kids, and they were messing around, and they did something like kids do. They went, oh, that's cool, get it down, record it, or we'll make a song out of that. You know, you know, Captain Beefheart, he walks in, he's got a theremin in the studio. We'll set that theremin up, let's write a track, and then electricity is born. Because it reacts to what's going on in the room. We've lost all that. And it'll be a shame when it's lost completely. And maybe turning Abbey Road into a museum does not really capture that. Perhaps that is what I felt, why I wasn't getting that feeling. You know, I have worked, well, I've done now this little session I did up at Abbey Road, but the two sort of legendary studios I've worked in quite a lot would be Real World, which is Peter Gabriel's studio, a relatively new studio that was built in the 1980s, I think, and Rockfield, which was the first residential recording studio. Has been used by all sorts of different artists. It's an incredible place. It's designed on a different concept. It's it's got a huge open space like this. It's got a couple of other rooms. They don't have a separate control room. I was very influenced by that. When I went down to Real World, which is residential, you've also got incredible, eating facilities, bedrooms there. You've got a forest, you've got a lake. You could go off to walk in the forest. There's strange bridges, and always it is like almost like a little Willy Wonka style separate world that you can work in. Very, very modern and very English at the same time. Very old English. A wonderful place. I can remember going to the toilet, and as I was doing my business, I looked down and I could see the XLR inputs in the toilet, and I realized every single room, including the toilets, was wired for sound. A different concept, not like one dedicated room, but this sprawling place where you could do all sorts of stuff. They had stages in there that were like on crisscrossy patterns, so you could see through the stages, so you could actually put drummers up there and then mic them from underneath. Incredible concepts going on. Rockfield is just like this incredibly huge, 2 studios there, both huge. This is where Queen did a Bohemian Rhapsody. Robert Plant's recorded down there. Phil Collins is recorded down there. Oasis is recorded down there. I've got to try and think of all the famous bands that have recorded in there. And an incredible place. Old and cranky, but wonderful, strange acoustic environments, great big echo chambers. And a few years ago, because these studios do not get the use they used to, often they're willing to do a deal. Back when everybody wants them and people with huge record deals are going down, say we want to have 2 weeks there, they could have charged the earth, but it's not like that now. And I said this to a couple of my students once. I said, if you've got a band, you've got 2 things you could do here. You could try and do it yourself in bedrooms and go to studios and patch it all together and work it all out and do everything one at a time, put the drums down, put the vocals down, like records are made. Now that process is actually slower in a way than having something rehearsed, walking in, setting the mics up, and then you play that song, it's 5 minutes long, and then it's done. It takes 5 minutes to make the track. It's faster. So I said you could, instead of spending a year trying to pull this together yourself, you could book Rockfield. I said it's going to cost, it's going to cost hundreds of pounds, but you could probably do 5, 6, 7 songs in one day, all recorded at the same time with engineers that have worked on massively famous albums. They would probably do you a working mix at the end. You're going to walk out with something which is absolutely incredible, all in one day. And that means that your vision, if you book it for 2 weeks' time and you make sure you rehearse and arrive there and you play them correctly, in 2 weeks, you come out with the finished product. Plus, you could film it all and you've got all your video. Now, I sit there thinking, in today's world, in today's internet world, when you watch videos of Snarky Puppy and they're sat in some great, big, incredible studio, aren't they, with an audience sat there? I wonder whether there isn't the matchup between bands and studios to think, we could go to Abbey Road. If you're a band now, you can go to Abbey Road. Don't know how much it's going to cost, okay? But think about it. Say it's £1,000 a day, and I have no idea how much it would be, but say it's £1,000 a day. If you pay that and you're in a 5-piece band, that is 200 quid each. You were going to come out of with a record that was made in Abbey Road with the best engineers in the world, right? When you're there, every single photograph, every bit of, you just run your iPhones while you make the album. Everything's done on the one day. Plus, you're going to be able to eat for free in the beautiful canteen, because all of that stuff is part of the service. When you pay a big recording studio, you're getting the whole lot. So there is this aspect to me, I think, wouldn't it be great to be pushing to get bands into Abbey Road, not to make albums, because albums don't matter anymore, not to make albums, but to create stuff for the internet, for YouTube, for Instagram, and to create some sort of vibe between those studios and the artists that are out there, and change the economic structure. If you go in and you hire that room, you walk out with everything that they give you at the end of it. You've got your multi-tracks, you've also got all the video footage and all the photographs. You own that. But why is Abbey Road not setting something up where they could have that themselves? I mean, if a tiny desk can do it, and that is a huge business, which makes a ton of money, promotes bands and gets bands out there. Why are these big studios not thinking like that? Why aren't they setting up their own YouTube channel and basically just creating content and not waiting for bands to come in, but actively going out there to find interesting artists plus legacy artists, mixing it all up and basically creating content, not records. Records don't make any money. Singles don't make any money. Albums don't make any money. Anyone who's stuck their track up on Spotify, if they do manage to get 3 or 4 million views, the reason why you don't get much money is not because you're being ripped off by capitalists. It's because the track's short. And there just isn't enough there to grab the advertising that's going with it. Us YouTubers know about that. If you're watching this and you haven't got the Premiere the Premiere YouTube thing, I've got it because I don't want to see adverts. So I pay every month. I'd much rather do that. And my enjoyment of YouTube went through the roof. Here I am selling YouTube for YouTube. But the fact is, if you haven't got that, how many adverts are you going to be trawling through whilst watching this video? Way more than if I put a song on Spotify. And so I just don't feel that the old music business is what Abbey Road represents. It just represents an old, cranky, elitist thing to me. Right? That's what it felt like. I felt like I was in a church. I felt like I was in somewhere hallowed. My daughter was with me, kept saying, are we allowed to do this? Are we allowed to do that? You know, can I have this? Can I have that? You know, what if I say this? Oh, don't do that. You're talking too loud. You know, we'd be sitting in rooms whispering. I came and sat in the control room of the studio I was in, and we were all walking away whispering because there was a recording going on. And my friend Rob, who's an engineer, turned around and goes, this is Abbey Road. I'm sure this soundproof. We don't have to whisper. I don't normally whisper in the cold control room of a normal little studio. I'm whispering more in respect and deference for this incredible place I'm sat in. So my conclusion on this video, hopefully, as I arrive at it, and you know I never have my conclusions ready, I've talked it through. I was expecting this to be more negative. I thought I was going to come on here and say this, that, you know, it's really great, it's a tourist attraction. If you go down there, you can get your key ring with Abbey Road on or whatever it is, and you can look at some old gear and think, oh my God, Paul McCartney might have touched that. Did he sit on this seat at some point or whatever it is? You could do all that and go down there, and it could well be that it ends up like that. You know, I can imagine in a, you know, maybe 40 years time, you walk in, pay your ticket, and you go into the big room, and there's some hologram of the Beatles playing all their famous tunes, and you sit and watch it, you pay a ton of money, and you go out. And that would be a shame, because that would have meant that this music that we love will totally be locked to as a museum piece. I've seen adverts for an Elvis Presley show like that, which basically a recreation of his 1970 comeback show with actors, you know, and I just thought, yeah, it'll become a museum piece. I don't get a kick. I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what the room looks like. What I get a kick at is the music. That's what I get a kick at. That's where it exists. That's where it exists, is the music. I would love to have been able to go in there and have Dark Side of the Moon multi-tracks and be able to go in there. I don't want to touch any of the knobs. I'll leave that to the professionals, but that's what I'd want to see. I don't want to see someone go, this is, you know, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon. This is what the first track sounds like. You know, does anyone want to come up and just EQ that bass drum, see what happens, you know, and I want to see the process. But then I'm a musician, aren't I? You know, and I'm interested in these things. What's my conclusion? My conclusion is, and I have this with the legacy music business, let's call it that, all the stuff that we used to love, albums, CDs, live bands in recording studios, proper concerts where they're not miming, no auto-tune, real instruments that have been mic'd up, all the things that we value and love, which is basically saying the visceral energy of people working together and the love that moves between them and how that then is transferred into vibrations. And you hear the love. If you put an old Motown record on with the Wrecking Crew, everybody there's got one aim, and it's to make that record sound good. And they're all responding off everybody else. They're smiling. They're looking at each other and they're smiling in that room. And you can sort of feel that through the microphones. That's what we love. There's a magic that's captured when people make records like that. There isn't a magic when you've just done it all, you know, on, you know, one track at a time, or programmed it up on a computer, because everybody's sat there going like this. Which is why I deliberately came up here. They're all here, you know, and it's like listening to music now is that. It's looking at this. Look at that, wait, where are we up to there? Oh yeah, we've got, and everybody is not listening, they're looking. Oh, that drum looks out of time. I think that note that she's saying, I think it looks a bit out of tune. It looks. And that's why I came up this end of my studio, because this is what it's all about. I've got my comfy chair here, and I sit here and preside over it like some worrying God to make sure everything's perfect. But perfect just bloody wrecks everything. My conclusion is these studios that we have in the UK, these incredible studios that we have, the ones that are still there, which would be off Real World, Rockfield, Abbey Road, I mean, it's Air still around, Trident, Olympic, there's all these incredible studios. I think they've got to get their heads around the way real live music is delivered on the internet. And we have gone through the age of real musicians finding a home on the internet, away from the labels. And now we have all these famous guitarists and musicians and bass players and Jacob Colliers. And everybody is looking at the virtuosity. They're impressed by that because they can see it. It's all about it being seen, right? And everybody's been doing it in their little bedrooms. Some bands, I think it started with Dirty Loops and then Snarky Puppy, and then a whole bunch of people have done it live, I think the studios have to sit down and go, is there a way of us doing what Andy Edwards is doing? He's got his studio down there and he makes YouTube videos. Sometimes he's just sat there talking. Sometimes he's playing. Sometimes he mixes it up. But he creates a show, My show is delivered from this room here. That's what I do. Sometimes I do them at home as well, but sometimes I'm down here. And there's things going on every single day. Antitilla, which is a band I did some charity work for. They're a Ukrainian band that are trying to set up charities to look after kids who have been orphaned in the Ukrainian war. They've come over to the UK the last few days and been doing something, and I've lent them some gear. And they've, they very kindly, give me some stuff, and we've been down and been chatting and all that type of stuff. I want them to come here. I want musicians to pop in, and they might just sit down and say what they're doing, or they might jam. It might just be acoustic guitars, or we might just mic everything up and do it all. But the fact is, that's what I've been doing today. That's been my day. There's always something going on. Always something. Always someone's popping in, always a chat or something. I saw my mate Kevin Gammon this morning, who owns this amp here, and he's donated it to my YouTube for a few weeks so I can utilise it. And it's sat in front of me now. I'm not going to let you see it yet. I'm going to build you up. But we then started talking about all sorts of different things. And he was telling me stories from back when he was gigging in London back in the late 60s. And we went into a big chat. And then I come in here and I sit down and I chat to you about it. And my head's deep in music. Every minute of the day is deep in the music. And I think the studios need to return to that. They need to know where the music making is. And they have to put a moral value in it, an ethical value, that those studios were set up for people to play. Not to work, to play. And let the children play. As Carlos Santana once said, let them play and document the play and put that play out of there in a place that's been there for 100 years, which is designed for play. It's a grown-ups playroom. What I've got here is my grown-up playroom. How do I get this across to the studios to get their heads out of this bloody nostalgia thing? But they think they're going to get their money by selling mugs and get them back to do what that place is supposed to do. It will never go away. You just have to have faith with it and do what always happened there. But don't do it for bloody albums and records and bloody whatever it is, because they don't exist anymore. Do it for the best communication thing that we've ever had in the history of mankind, which is this here. That's my advice for what it's worth. Done, over and out with. Stick a like on, subscribe if you thought this was interesting. What else could you do? I've got a Patreon, free members. They know what's happening because I tell the members what's happening before anybody else. And I have a membership here on YouTube. You can become a member here and see videos, earlier, and some special videos just for them. And I also have a PayPal tip jar, which sometimes saves the day for me. So if you can, if you don't want to become a patron, but you want to just give me a little bit of, they always say it's for a cup of tea or a drink, but it's not for me. It's basically mine goes on Greg's. So if you want to contribute to the Greg's Fund, that's down below. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one. You may think I've come out to walk the dog, but I'm a big deal, and so I'm in a place where big deal people go. Do you want to see where I am? You're not going to believe it. Look at that. Abbey Road's recording studio. Studio. Not just a recording studio, a recording studio. Everyone's recorded here. The Beatles, Jerry and the Pacemakers, Max Bygraves, they've all played here, and now I'm here, Andy Edwards, and I'm sure if people visit in the future, they will be able to walk down the hallowed hall we've just walked down and look at the pictures on the wall, and nestled in next to all the famous musicians that have been down here, young blood, all these new ones, and the old ones as well. We've seen them all today, the Shadows, Cliff, they're all in there. But I hope in a few decades people will come down and go, who's that chap there, the old but handsome chap? And they'll say, it's Andy Edwards. Yes, he oh my god, did he do some stuff here? Yes, he did, I believe he did. What did he do? Well, it's just all good stuff, really. So that's where we're at the moment, Abbey Road. That's where I am, a big deal. Right, so, just remember that. This is why I'm filming this, and this is why I've put it up on the list. I mean, in me just talking to a camera, there's no interest, but you're watching and you're going, oh, is that Abbey Road? Yes, it is. And all the people, they're all walking past in front of me, and because I'm doing this, they're all looking and thinking, I wonder who that bloke is. Is he famous? Oh, no, it's not famous. Or is it George Clooney? No, it's not George Clooney. That's what they're doing. Right, I'm getting photographed now. Look, this bloke's here. He's doing it right now. Can you see him there? He's photographing me, photographing you, photographing me. So that's where we're at anyway. That's what I'm doing. I ain't gonna tell you what I'm doing here. It's bloody big stuff. I'm telling you, big stuff. Proper big stuff. That's what I'm doing. It's the big stuff I'm doing now. Big stuff that big YouTubers do. I'm not here in a drum capacity, let us say that. Not that good. But, in terms of YouTubing, I've now arrived. Any fans here? Hello? Any fans? Andy Edwards fans? Hello? See? Got fans. All right then, see you all. Bye-bye.